Sometimes life doesn't collapse because of a hurricane or a fire, but because of betrayal that creeps in silently, like a snake in the grass. Yesterday, you were a beloved husband, a proud father, and a respected engineer. Today, you're accused of a crime you didn't commit. Your wife whispers venomous parting words, and the daughter you once carried in your arms looks right through you as if you don't exist. What if everything you cherished turned out to be a trap set by those closest to you? When everything you've built over the years crumbles in a matter of days, will there be even a spark of will left to fight for your life? Or will you let those who betrayed you put the final nail in the coffin? It all begins with a stab in the back and ends in a place you never imagined surviving. But what if, beyond the edge of despair, love can still be found? The kind of love that saves you even from the abyss. Greetings, my dear viewer. Please tell me which city and country you're watching this video from. Maybe you're watching me from a small town or a gigantic metropolis. Write about it. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends. It will make me very happy. Let's get started. Just a few days ago, life felt routine. I was swamped with work deadlines and the constant pull of family life. My wife, Kendra, and I had our share of disagreements, but they always seemed manageable, never threatening the foundation we'd built. Our life was rich with love and memories, even though a low, persistent worry gnawed at me. I kept telling myself it was just the normal pressures of adulthood, but the tension between Kendra and me grew, and petty arguments turned into explosive confrontations. Kendra became increasingly distant, her moods swinging unpredictably. Whenever I tried to bring up my concerns, she brushed me off like I was imagining things. I sensed a shift happening, but I never expected it would break everything apart. Now, slumped on the bedroom floor, utterly spent, I struggled to grasp how everything had fallen apart so fast. Only a few days earlier, this nightmare would have seemed impossible. The carpet beneath me, once a point of pride, was now stained and wrecked, a harsh symbol of all I had lost. I shut my eyes and murmured, "What am I doing? I'm better than this." When I opened them again, my gaze caught on the sturdy wood of the bed frame, and for a fleeting second I pictured Kendra standing beside it. But deep down, I knew that was just a memory. She was gone. Everything familiar seemed to be slipping through my fingers. My hands shook as I tried to steady myself, the crushing weight of despair nearly overwhelming me. The room around me seemed to swim and distort, but my focus landed on a liquor bottle and a pill container sitting on the bed, the cap lying forgotten. I winced at the bitter chemical stink of alcohol that hung heavy in the air. My heart lurched as I frantically scanned for the letters I had written. Relief flooded me when I spotted them untouched on the nightstand. What if someone reads them? The thought sparked, but I forced it away. Soon, none of it would matter. Why did it have to come to this? I thought, the bile rising in my throat. My daughter would never forgive me for what I was about to do. Though after what had happened last week, maybe she already hated me. "I can't bear this anymore," I whispered to the empty room. Even as I drifted closer to oblivion, the pain refused to release me. Only a week ago, I would have fought fiercely to survive. Now, all that remained was a hollow shell, deserted and unloved. I couldn't see any other escape. The burning in my wrists faded into a dull throb as I hovered between consciousness and unconsciousness. I had braced myself for something, maybe a flood of memories or some final vision, but only silence awaited. A heavy truth crashed down on me. I didn't want to die, but by then it was too late. As the darkness swallowed me whole, my last reserves of strength slipped away. Just 7 days earlier, I had been laughing, spinning my daughter Gabriella around the living room of our house in Perth. At 19, Gabriella had just gotten engaged to her childhood sweetheart, Jason. "Dad, he asked me to marry him." She had cried, her face glowing with happiness. I had seen the proposal coming and had already given Jason my blessing. They had been inseparable since they were kids, and my heart had nearly burst with pride. Bubbling with excitement, Gabriella relayed every detail to Kendra and me. Jason set up a treasure hunt around the city, she said, beaming. At the last stop, under a tree in King's Park, he popped the question. Her joy was infectious. I had pulled her into a hug and lifted her off her feet, laughing along with her. The next morning, over breakfast, I reassured her that even though they were young, what they had was real. As I admired the dazzling ring on her hand, I gave her a proud smile. "It's beautiful, Gabby," I said, turning to Jason with a grin. "You chose well," I added. Kendra, sitting at the table with her glass of wine, chuckled. At 42, she was still stunning, with her golden-tanned skin, wavy chestnut hair, and those warm brown eyes. Raising her glass, she teased, "Give me some credit. I helped him pick it out." "Mom? Seriously?" Gabriella groaned, blushing with embarrassment. Kendra just laughed and waved it off. "Relax, honey." He made the final call. But something about her words unsettled me. Lately, Kendra's behavior had been off. Little digs, odd reactions, things that didn't fit the woman I thought I knew. We pushed through the unease and finished celebrating with a cheerful family dinner. After dessert, Gabriella and Jason left for their apartment, but Kendra's remark kept replaying in my mind. The next morning, Kendra and I stirred slowly in bed. As things became more intimate, she suddenly pulled away and rushed to the bathroom, leaving me cold and bewildered. "Kendra?" I called after her. "What's wrong?" Her voice drifted back, sharp and detached. "What's in this for me?" A moment later, she muttered, "I'm already cleaning up." I stood there, frozen, not knowing how to respond. Eventually, I dragged myself into the shower and then headed to the kitchen, only to find a hastily scribbled note. Kendra had left without a word. Anger boiled up inside me. Never in all our years together had she treated me with such disdain. A dark suspicion began to form. Was she seeing someone else? Dazed with rage and betrayal, I almost didn't hear my phone vibrating on the counter. It was Ryan, my oldest friend. "Hey, Brandon," he said, his familiar voice cutting through the haze. "Nothing much," I lied, my voice tight with the effort of holding it together. "You're a terrible liar," Ryan said immediately. I didn't even try to resist. Over the next 10 minutes, I poured everything out, Kendra's strange behavior, my growing fears. Ryan gave a dry laugh. "If she's stepping out, there's not a lot you can do. Divorce will cost you half of everything, and she's not even working. She'll bleed you dry." "You're not exactly helping," I said through gritted teeth. "Just being real with you," Ryan replied. "Listen, we'll catch up tomorrow. We've got to review the Preston project anyway." "Yeah," I said, hollowly. "Tomorrow." Ryan and I worked closely together. I was the senior engineer. He handled the program management. We made a good team. Somehow, I slogged through the rest of Sunday. Kendra finally drifted in around midnight, not even sparing me a glance, fully aware that I was lying awake, waiting for her. The next morning, she acted as if everything was completely normal. "This can't be real, Kendra," I muttered under my breath as I swung my legs out of bed. "You're actually saying no?" she asked, her eyes wide with genuine shock. I started getting dressed for work without answering. "After how you treated me last weekend, I just can't do this," I said, my voice cracking. "If you're involved with someone else—" My words faded, the accusation unfinished. She let out a bitter laugh. "And what exactly do you plan to do about it, Brandon?" she mocked. "You're powerless." Although her voice softened a little, the cruelty still lingered beneath it. "Come on, get back in bed," she urged, her tone almost pleading. "You know we both want this." I shook my head, stunned. "I don't even recognize you anymore. You can't keep treating me like garbage, Kendra. It's beyond disrespectful." "Whatever," she snapped, her words dripping with venom. Feeling a level of disgust toward my wife that I had never known in over 20 years of marriage, I stormed out of the bedroom. At work that morning, hiding my turmoil was nearly impossible. Maya, my loyal assistant of a decade, noticed right away. "Brandon, are you okay?" "You don't seem yourself," she asked with a worried expression. I thought back to when I'd first hired her. Back then, she had just left a toxic relationship. Her eye blackened, but her spirit fierce. Despite the rough edges, she was sharp, capable, and undeniably attractive. Over the years, she had earned my utmost respect, proving herself with her honesty and resilience. After some hesitation, I found myself confiding in Maya about everything that had been happening with Kendra. The more I spoke, the deeper her frown grew, until she was brimming with anger on my behalf. "I don't know what to do anymore, Maya," I admitted, feeling completely beaten down. "If she's been cheating, I never saw it coming." For the first time in all our years working together, Maya broke her professional barrier and put a comforting hand on my shoulder. "First things first," she said firmly. "We need to get through the Preston meeting. There's a problem with the piping and the concrete." I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" Ryan didn't say a word about any issues. Before she could answer, Ryan himself appeared in my doorway, smiling broadly. "Ready to roll, buddy," he said in a chipper tone. Lowering my voice, I asked, "Ryan, what's this about trouble with the concrete and piping?" He dismissed it with a shrug. "Don't worry about it. We've got it under control." But the meeting turned into a complete disaster. The Preston board, usually welcoming, were cold and tense from the start. As I delivered the progress update, I could feel their irritation thickening the air. Finally, Philip, their CEO, cut in sharply. "Can someone explain the budget overruns on concrete and piping for the Northeast project?" I shot a look at Ryan, who only gave a helpless shrug. Turning back to the room, I said, "I'll need to review it." As of last week, we were on track with costs. Philip's frown deepened, darkening the atmosphere even more. "Then why have I personally approved over $200,000 in unexpected material expenses over the past few months?" I sat there, stunned into silence. Again, I looked to Ryan, but he avoided my eyes, offering nothing. He motioned for me to follow him out of the room. In a side office, we met up with Caleb, our boss. Before I could say a word, Ryan shoved a folder into Caleb's hands. "They asked about the missing inventory, just like we suspected," Ryan said smoothly. Caleb turned a furious stare onto me. "What are you trying to tell me here, Brandon?" he growled. I stared at him, incredulous. "Sir, everything seemed fine to me," I insisted. "I never authorized any extra spending." Caleb slammed the folder onto a table, his face darkening further. "So you're sticking with that story?" he sneered. I was still reeling when Ryan, suddenly somber, added, "There are signed requisitions for $26,000, sent straight into an account under your name." Caleb's expression twisted into pure betrayal. "After all the chances I gave you, this is how you repay me?" he bellowed. I felt like the floor had dropped out from beneath me. From there, the meeting spiraled out of control. Caleb and Ryan hurled accusations of embezzlement at me, refusing to listen to a word of defense. HR was called, and without any sort of proper hearing, I was fired on the spot, with Caleb even threatening to get the police involved. To make matters even worse, they terminated Maya as well, simply because she was seen as being too closely connected to me. As I was escorted out of the building, carrying a box with a few of my belongings, I caught Ryan flashing a smug, satisfied grin when he thought I wasn't looking. In the parking lot, I spotted Maya by her car, sobbing uncontrollably. "Maya, are you okay?" I asked, approaching carefully. She spun around, eyes blazing. "You bastard, Brandon!" she screamed at me. "You stole 200 grand and dragged me into it. I trusted you. It wasn't me," I pleaded desperately. "But she cut me off before I could get far." I saw the paperwork. I saw your signature. And all that crap you said about Kendra? Was that just another lie? You've completely destroyed my life, she cried. It was the angriest I'd ever seen her, the pain raw and visible. Before I could say anything more, she slapped me hard across the face, then jumped into her car and tore out of the lot. Shaken and broken, I made my way back home. Kendra was waiting for me, an ugly sneer on her face. "Well, well," she said mockingly. "The cheating husband comes crawling back home. Pathetic." Over the following days, it became painfully clear that Kendra was savoring every moment of my downfall. One night, no longer able to hold back, I finally confronted her. "Kendra, what's really going on here? I swear I didn't do any of this," I said, my voice trembling with anger and confusion. She just looked at me with a wicked, satisfied smile. "It doesn't make a difference anymore, Brandon. We're finished." Not long after, a firm knock echoed through the house. At the door stood a man, stiff and impersonal, holding a bulky envelope. "You've been served," he said bluntly before turning on his heel and walking off. I tore open the package to find divorce papers inside. "Kendra." "Divorce papers?" I stammered, feeling the floor drop out from under me. She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Obviously. I've been seeing someone else for months," she declared, each word dripping with cruel pleasure. "He's everything you're not. Thrilling, wealthy. You lost your job, your family's deserted you, and soon enough, you'll lose your freedom too." She leaned closer, savoring my agony. "Don't fight it. Sign the papers. I'm taking the house, most of our assets, and soon enough, you'll be locked away where you belong." "You're moving in with him then?" I asked, barely able to breathe through the betrayal. She laughed again, the sound sharp and merciless. "Of course. And when you're rotting in a cell, we'll rent out this place. Try anything, and I'll make sure you get arrested." Defeated, I collapsed into a chair. Kendra's gaze fell on the red imprint Maya had left on my face, and her lips twisted into a triumphant smirk. "At least that little tramp got fired too. Crawl back under whatever rock you came from, Brandon." With that, she turned and walked away. The rest of the day passed in a numb haze. I couldn't even bring myself to drink. The next morning, adrift and desperate, I dialed Gabriella's number. It rang endlessly before she finally answered, her voice sharp and frigid. "What do you want?" "Gabriella, honey, I began, but she cut me off without hesitation. "Save it, Dad," she snapped. "Mom told me everything. The cheating, the lies, the affair with your assistant. You tore our family apart, and I've never been more disgusted with anyone." I was too stunned to form a response, but she plowed ahead. "Listen carefully. I want nothing to do with you. Your face is plastered all over the news. The police are looking for you. Don't even think about showing up at my wedding. I'll find someone else to walk me down the aisle." Silent tears streamed down my face as I listened. "Are you even listening?" she demanded. "Do you have any idea the damage you've caused?" I could only sob helplessly. "Goodbye, Dad. You're dead to me. Don't ever call again," she finished, then hung up without another word. I collapsed onto the floor, broken beyond repair. 2 days later, officers arrived at my door, slapped cuffs on me, and dragged me in for questioning about the alleged fraud. Though they eventually released me, they ordered me to remain in town until my court date the following week. Back at the empty house, I wandered aimlessly through rooms lined with reminders of a better life. Snapshots of Gabriella's childhood, trophies she once proudly displayed. They were ghosts now, mocking me. The days blurred into each other, a miserable fog of sorrow and confusion. Deep down, something didn't add up, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. My wife had abandoned me. My daughter had erased me from her life. I'd lost my career, and Maya held me responsible too. Even my closest friends kept their distance. I was utterly alone, shattered, directionless, unsure how to even start picking up the pieces. Problem-solving had been second nature to me as an engineer. But this was beyond fixing. I forced myself into an ice-cold shower and choked down a stale sandwich that only deepened the pit in my stomach. Losing Gabriella hurt more than anything else. On the table sat a bottle of sleeping pills and a half-empty whiskey bottle. For a fleeting moment, dark thoughts crept in, but I forced them away. I told myself I just needed time. The next morning brought a fresh gut punch, a restraining order banning me from contacting Kendra, Gabriella, Jason, or Ryan. I was also ordered to vacate the house by Monday. Ryan's name on the list caught my attention. Something about it didn't sit right. A fuse lit inside me. I shot off a text to Ryan. "You lying bastard, this is all on you, I'm coming for you." He never answered. Shortly after, the detectives returned, reprimanding me for violating the restraining order. They weren't interested in hearing anything I had to say. They just wanted to haul me away. They ordered me to pack my things under supervision and warned me to behave. Boiling with rage, I threw back 3 shots of whiskey and sat down to write letters, one to Kendra, one to Gabriella, and one to Maya. To Kendra, I unleashed every ounce of my fury. "You're a backstabbing whore. May you rot in hell for what you've done to me." I cursed her at length, spat on the letter, and stuffed it into an envelope. Gabriella's letter shattered me as I wrote it. "I'm crushed that you never even asked if I was guilty. I never betrayed your mother. She betrayed me. I never stole a dime." I begged her to see past the lies someday and pleaded for her to remember the father who loved her. I softened the letter at the end, urging her to love Jason with all her heart and to eventually think of me with kindness. I also warned her not to let Ryan walk her down the aisle, not after what he had done. Tears blurred the page as I sealed it. Finally, I wrote to Maya, offering her the apology she deserved. "None of this is your fault," I told her. I confessed my belief that Ryan had betrayed both of us, telling her I suspected he was the one having an affair with my wife. I apologized if I had ever made her uneasy with the way I looked at her, insisting it had only been a quiet, distant admiration of her beauty. As her fury began to subside, I asked her to forgive me. After finishing the letters, I placed them neatly on the nightstand along with a sticky note, urging the detectives to dig into Ryan's financial records if they wanted the real story. "Do your jobs properly next time, and don't drive an innocent man to this," I wrote. I picked up a bottle of liquor and a fistful of sleeping pills before returning to the bedroom. Once more, I laid the letters on the nightstand and added another short note about Ryan. I took a long, searing shower, drank heavily from the bottle, and swallowed the pills one after another. Dressing with care in fresh clothes, I eventually collapsed near the bathroom floor, a straight razor slipping from my weakening grip. Lying there, I could only think about how abandoned and hated I had become. Later, I found out that Detective Derek Randall had been keeping tabs on me. After a neighbor raised concerns, he entered my home and found me barely hanging on to life. I was rushed by ambulance to the hospital, and my house was immediately declared a crime scene. When they found me, I was semi-conscious, teetering between life and death. During their search, they uncovered 3 hidden surveillance cameras I had never known about, along with the emptied liquor bottle, the pills, and my letters. I remained unconscious for 3 days. When I finally woke, a nurse quietly explained that I was in a private hospital in Hollywood. She motioned toward Maya, who had been sitting faithfully by my side. Seeing her there, I murmured her name, waking her. Without a second thought, she seized my hand. "Brandon, what were you thinking?" she asked, her voice low, thick with emotion, and her eyes shimmering with tears. "I thought this would be easier," I whispered back, weighed down by guilt. She gave a small, disbelieving laugh. "You thought this was the solution?" She shook her head, trying to stay composed despite her frustration. "I've known you for more than 10 years. Since when do you just give up?" Her voice cut through the soft beeping of the hospital equipment. After a long, heavy pause, I finally answered, "I'm sorry, Maya." When Kendra, Gabriella, and even you seemed to turn against me, I felt completely isolated. No one even asked if I was guilty. Everyone just assumed it. My wife told me to end my life. My daughter didn't want to know me anymore. My best friend betrayed me. I hurt you too. I wasn't thinking clearly. I drowned my pain in alcohol and, in one weak moment, I thought there was no other way, I said quietly. She listened carefully, her expression softening before she sat gently on the edge of the bed. "I'm sorry too, Brandon," she said in a broken whisper, tears gathering in her eyes. "I let my anger blind me. I didn't even stop to wonder if you might be innocent." "It's okay, Maya," I murmured. "No, it's not. Knowing I might have been part of what drove you to this." Her voice cracked as she cried openly. "I don't know if I can ever forgive myself." "It's all right," I repeated, shutting my eyes, drained. We sat there in silence, her hand wrapped tightly around mine, until the doctor entered with a calm smile. "Mr. Osborne, it's good to see you awake." "How are you feeling?" he asked warmly. "Alive, though I wasn't expecting to be," I admitted honestly. The doctor's face darkened slightly at my words, and Maya's expression did too. "Let's make sure you stay that way," he said, keeping his tone upbeat. As he examined me, checking the bandages on my arms and monitoring my vitals, Maya gasped quietly when she caught sight of the wounds. The doctor explained the extent of the blood loss, the emergency stomach pumping, and emphasized how critical it was that I recover slowly. Before leaving, he mentioned that a detective wanted to speak with me. When we were alone again, I turned to Maya. "Are you here because you read my letter?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I haven't seen it yet. Detective Randall told me about it," she replied, her voice trembling faintly. "My cousin works at this hospital. She called me as soon as you were admitted after everything." I couldn't bring myself to look at her, guilt crashing over me again. Maya continued. "When I left that day, I was still furious, but deep down, I couldn't believe you were really guilty. We've spent years working side by side. When I heard what happened, I realized you had been framed." "I'm so sorry, Brandon," she said through sobs, resting her head against my chest and soaking my gown with her tears. After a while, she stood up and wiped at her face. When she tried to pull her hand away, I held on tighter. Tenderly, she brushed the tears from my cheeks, giving me a fragile, sad smile. I kept thinking about it. It didn't add up. "You cared too much about your work." "But when Ryan showed me those documents, I let my anger take control," she said, pausing when she noticed my reaction at Ryan's name. "It was him, wasn't it?" "Ryan set you up?" she asked, her voice now sharp and low. I nodded slowly. "I believe so. I have no concrete proof yet, but there are too many red flags. He never warned us about the financial problems, and there are documents out there with forged signatures, mine. And I'm pretty sure he's been having an affair with Kendra," I added softly, squeezing her hand lightly and closing my eyes. "I never wanted Ryan or Kendra to drag you into this mess, Maya. I'm so sorry. I can't even clear my own name. That's why My voice broke off. For a long moment, silence filled the room until a new voice interrupted us. "You're right. There's no concrete evidence. They framed you well, but real criminals don't usually work this cleanly." The man who entered the hospital room was tall, fit, and exuded confidence. "Mr. Osborne, I'm Detective Derek Randall." He introduced himself smoothly. "I was the one who found you, alongside your neighbor, Mrs. Hayes," he added. "It's good to see you're awake." I gave a half-hearted shrug. "Thanks," I said sourly, "but I'm guessing I'll be cuffed the second they discharge me." Maya's hand tightened around mine at my words. Detective Randall hesitated briefly. "About that," he began carefully. Maya and I exchanged a wary glance as the detective ran a hand through his neatly trimmed hair. I'm the lead on your case now, he said, and honestly, a few things aren't adding up. Sure, I muttered. Not like I've got much left to lose anyway. Maya abruptly cut in. Shouldn't he have a lawyer present for this? The detective sighed heavily. Yes, he absolutely should. It would be the smart move. Maya nodded resolutely. I'll arrange it. She stepped out, already pulling out her phone, while Randall and I watched her go. You're lucky to have her, Randall remarked. You're going to need people like her in your corner. Have you forgotten I'm still the main suspect? I snapped. He chuckled. Point taken. But something tells me this story is messier than it seems. Do you still insist you're innocent? Absolutely, I said, raising my bandaged wrists as proof. I would never betray a company I loved working for. Just then, Maya returned with a small smile. My cousin, Rachel Benson, will be Brandon's attorney, she announced brightly. Randall's face lit up. Rachel? She's excellent. Tell her to contact me ASAP. We spoke a few minutes more before he excused himself. Well, that was unexpected, I said quietly. No kidding, Maya agreed. Cops aren't usually that nice. A comfortable silence settled between us until I asked, Who's watching Tessa? My mom has her, Maya said, pulling a colorful drawing from her bag. It showed a bright hospital room with "Get well soon" scrawled in a child's hand across the top. It nearly undid me. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes. Thank you, I rasped out. Have you managed to reach Gabriella? I asked after a moment. Maya shook her head sadly. I've been trying, but she won't answer my calls. We kept conversation light and sparse until Rachel arrived. After brief introductions, Maya left to give us privacy. Rachel resembled Maya closely, attractive, with warm, light brown hair. The family resemblance was clear. She really cares about you, you know, Rachel said, echoing what Randall had mentioned earlier. I gave a dry laugh. We've just worked together for years, she smirked. Men can be so oblivious sometimes. I let out a hollow chuckle. If my ex-wife taught me anything, it's that. Rachel offered a kind smile. Don't worry, she said. I spoke with Detective Randall. He believes you were set up, and I have a few ideas of my own. I'll fight for you. Then she shifted gears. Now, about the divorce. What are you hoping to get out of it? My expression turned cold. I want everything the law will let me take, I said firmly. Rachel's eyes sparkled with understanding. Considering Kendra and Ryan likely framed you, stole from the company and pinned it on you, you deserve to hit them with everything you've got. Don't hold back. I found myself immediately trusting her. Rachel listened intently as I walked her through the events that led to my collapse, assuring me we had a strong case. She promised to coordinate my official interview once I was released from the hospital. The following days crawled by. I remained confined to my hospital room, interrupted only by the occasional visit from nurses and doctors. Without my phone, I couldn't reach out. Not that I believed anyone would be eager to hear from me anyway. But the next afternoon, Maya visited again, carrying a paperback. Endymion by Dan Simmons, an old favorite of mine I hadn't thought about in years. She settled into the chair beside my bed, quietly reading Pride and Prejudice to herself. I'm here to keep you company, she said with a soft smile. We chatted lightly, and when lunchtime came, she surprised me with a roast beef sandwich and fries while she nibbled on a chicken wrap. Even through the dull ache in my wrists, I felt a sliver of normalcy returning. Later that evening, Maya appeared once more, just as the nurses removed my IV. They told me that, provided my blood work was clean, I'd be discharged the following morning. I don't have anywhere to go, I admitted. No phone, no wallet. I can't even check into a motel, and I sure can't go home. Maya's face lit up with a warm smile. Rachel got a court order to retrieve your belongings, she said. I brought your phone, wallet, a change of clothes, laptop, iPad, and even your shaving kit. I stared at her, overwhelmed by the kindness. Thank you, I whispered. At least now I can figure something out. But I caught a shadow passing over her expression. What's wrong? I asked quietly. She lowered her voice. You were right about Ryan and Kendra, she said. When Rachel, the detective, and I went to collect your stuff, we found them, living together. And they definitely weren't expecting visitors. I let out a long sigh. I'm sorry you had to see all of that, I said quietly. What exactly happened? She offered a faint smile. They kept yelling at me to leave until the officer threatened to arrest them for breaking the court order. After that, I grabbed your things. Her voice shook as she described finding the bloodstain on the carpet, tears brimming in her eyes. Please, don't ever put me through that again, she whispered. I promise I won't, I said, raising my bandaged hands to show her I meant it. The next day, after I'd been cleaned up and cleared for discharge, Maya met me at the hospital. She drove us to a condominium complex in Kings Park, the car ride silent but comforting. Why are we here, Maya? Can't I just stay at your house? I asked, puzzled. She chuckled lightly. No, silly. You're staying here, she said warmly. No need to waste money on a hotel. You'll use the guest room for a few days. Rachel's stopping by later to talk about your case. I had been to Maya's place before, a cozy, welcoming two-story home she shared with her daughter Tessa. After settling into the condo, Rachel arrived, arms full of paperwork and wearing a stern expression. Brandon, you're lucky things didn't get worse, she said firmly. Rachel explained how Ryan and Kendra had almost succeeded in their plan, but thankfully it collapsed before they could finish the job. She said all my bank accounts were now frozen, including the fraudulent one they had opened in my name. There was even video footage capturing their actions, and Rachel was already preparing charges for fraud and emotional abuse. She assured me they wouldn't walk away unpunished. Rachel also told me she had filed a wrongful termination lawsuit against my previous employer. She was optimistic it would be resolved by the end of the week and had already arranged an interview for me with Detective Randall. She emphasized how important it was for me to follow her instructions closely. According to her, Ryan and Kendra would be facing arrest any day now. For the next hour, we pored over documents and signed paperwork. Rachel was confident that by tomorrow, the charges against me would officially be dropped. Once she left, I unpacked my few belongings, mostly clothes and some personal items. Maya and I spent the afternoon talking about what the next steps would be. Later, while she went to pick up Tessa from school, I powered on my phone for the first time in days. A flood of missed calls and messages appeared, most from Kendra, taunting me to sign the divorce papers before I ended up in jail. Oddly, there were also several messages from my old job asking to speak with me, but nothing at all from Gabriella. When Maya and Tessa returned, Tessa eagerly shared all the exciting details of her day at school, her bright energy lifting my spirits. Being around her, helping her with homework, reading bedtime stories, was exactly what my bruised heart needed. She was so much like her mother, full of warmth and light. After dinner and some TV, Tessa asked if I could tuck her into bed, and when she hugged me goodnight, I had to fight back tears. Her innocent love was a stark contrast to the devastation Gabriella had left behind. Later, sitting on the couch, Maya took my hand in hers and hugged me tightly, whispering that everything would be okay. The following day, after meeting with Detective Randall and Rachel, the charges against me were officially dropped. That evening, news broke that arrest warrants had been issued for Ryan and Kendra, but they had already vanished. That night, Gabriella called me for the first time since everything happened. I let it ring and go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. The next day, she bombarded me with calls and texts, begging me to speak to her. But I couldn't bring myself to answer. Her sudden desperation felt hollow, driven more by panic over the fallout than genuine regret. I was furious that she had deserted me without hesitation, and only now, when everything was unraveling, did she bother to reach out. That night, the nightmares returned. I dreamed I was back in that awful moment, Kendra and Ryan laughing as Maya, Gabriella, and Jason stood by and watched me die. I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. Maya was at my side in an instant, with little Tessa peeking nervously from the doorway. I buried my face in my hands, unable to stop the emotions from crashing over me. I can't keep doing this, I gasped, struggling to breathe. Maya and Tessa climbed onto the bed beside me, wrapping me in their arms. "It's all right, Uncle Brandon," Tessa said softly, her tiny hand finding mine. "You just had a bad dream. We're right here." Sleep didn't come easily after that. Eventually, Tessa fell asleep curled up next to me, her hand resting lightly on my stomach, while Maya stayed close, her face etched with worry. "Are you okay, Brandon?" she asked gently, pulling me into a comforting hug. I hesitated before answering. "No," I admitted. "I dreamed about that night." I couldn't bring myself to say more, but she understood without me having to. She kissed my cheek, resting her forehead against my neck. "What are we going to do, Brandon?" she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I pulled her closer, holding on to the only sense of safety I had left. "We'll figure it out," I said, my voice steady with newfound resolve. Wrapped in their embrace, I felt the faint stirrings of hope for the first time since my world had fallen apart. I clung to them both until dawn's first light crept into the room. The next morning, after breakfast, Maya took Tessa to school while I stayed behind. I realized I couldn't face this battle alone anymore and began searching for a therapist. By the time Maya came back, I had already scheduled a few appointments. She smiled warmly when she saw me, but quickly turned serious. "Brandon, can we talk for a minute?" she asked, leading me toward the couch. I nodded, already sensing the gravity of what was coming next. "I understand, Maya," I said softly. "Last night must have been terrifying with Tessa here. It's not right for you to have to deal with me waking up screaming. I'll find another place to stay." Her eyes grew wide with alarm, and she quickly clutched my hands tightly. "No, Brandon, that's not what I meant at all," she said in a rush. "It's the opposite, really." She paused to take a deep, steadying breath before continuing. "Brandon, I'm in love with you," she confessed, the words tumbling out urgently. I stared at her, taken aback. "Could you say that again?" I asked, hardly believing what I'd heard. "I'm in love with you," she repeated, this time in a softer voice, her face coloring with embarrassment. She searched my face anxiously, her hands trembling slightly. "When you were in the hospital," she went on, her voice quivering, "I thought I was going to lose my mind. I couldn't stand the idea of you leaving this world without knowing how deeply I care about you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was too stunned to answer as she continued pouring her heart out. "I tried so hard to hide it, but when I saw you hurt last night, it broke something inside me. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. Didn't you ever wonder why I never dated anyone?" She looked at me earnestly. I noticed, I admitted, still trying to make sense of everything. I just assumed it had something to do with Tessa. She nodded slowly. "That was part of it," she acknowledged. "But the real reason is, no one else ever compared to you." She explained how, from her very first day working with me, she'd admired the way I treated her, with genuine kindness and unwavering respect, and how I had always made Tessa feel safe, loved, and important. "You've been a father figure to her," Maya said warmly, "and when everything spiraled out of control last week, you stayed strong. You kept your dignity, even when I lost mine," she added, her cheeks reddening at the memory of the slap. "You're an extraordinary man, Brandon. There are so many reasons I love you. If Kendra was foolish enough to throw you away, then I'm here, ready to gather the pieces," she said, before leaning in and pressing her lips softly to mine. Time seemed to stand still. "Will you let me love you, Brandon?" she whispered. "Will you be mine?" I sat there, unable to find words, I'd dreamed of being with her once or twice, but now that it was real, it felt overwhelming. I knew things with Kendra were beyond repair, and Maya's love felt like a healing balm on old, aching wounds. Yet, a small part of me still hesitated, wary of how easily things could go wrong. Maya seemed to sense my uncertainty, but didn't push. Instead, she quietly took my hand and led me to her bedroom. Later that night, wrapped in each other's arms, I drifted into sleep. The nightmares returned. Kendra and Ryan still haunted me, but this time, Maya appeared within the dream, soothing the pain and carrying me away from the darkness. The next morning, the alarm clock jarred me awake. I shivered instinctively, but this time I didn't scream. As we dressed, I recounted the dream to Maya. Her face clouded with concern, and she insisted that I accompany her to pick Tessa up from school. The days turned into weeks. Eventually, news came. Ryan and Kendra had been caught trying to flee the country. In a panic after the charges against me were dropped, they'd attempted to escape Perth for Adelaide, but were intercepted at customs. It took 2 months to extradite them back to Perth, during which time Maya and I became inseparable. I moved completely into her room, our room now, and it felt as though I'd been given back my youth, as if I were 20 years old again. There was no denying it anymore. I was completely, utterly in love with her. When Ryan and Kendra were finally brought back to Perth, everything Maya had said finally made sense. Kendra barely crossed my mind anymore. A month later, Maya, Rachel, and I stood side by side in court to testify against them. Ryan refused to even glance at me throughout the trial. In the end, he received a 15-year prison sentence. Kendra, however, never took her eyes off me, staring at me relentlessly from the dock. During the proceedings, it was revealed that Ryan had manipulated everything from the beginning, seducing Kendra and masterminding the entire betrayal. Kendra was sentenced to 20 years for her part as an accessory, with an additional 5 years tacked on for emotional abuse, thanks to hidden camera footage Ryan had foolishly recorded. Once the trial ended, the judge finalized my divorce from Kendra. Rachel, always practical, ensured we immediately divided our assets and sold the house, splitting the money evenly. Rachel also persuaded me to act as trustee for Kendra's share of the funds, managing it carefully, without spending a dime until her release years down the road. The moment sentencing was over, Ryan and Kendra were led away to begin serving their time. Before she was taken away, Kendra's lawyer made a surprising request, that I meet with her privately, just once. After a moment's hesitation, I agreed. We sat across from each other in a sterile, windowless room. Kendra slouched in her chair, a ghost of the woman I had once loved. Unlike in the courtroom, she couldn't even lift her gaze to meet mine. Several long minutes passed before she finally spoke, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry, Brandon," she whispered. Hearing her apologize first startled me. "Are you really Kendra?" I asked, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. At last, she looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. "Yes, Brandon. I'm sorry," she repeated. I wanted to dismiss her words, to walk away, but something in her expression begged me to stay a moment longer. I gave her a slight nod, signaling her to go on. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "I mean it. I'm sorry. I don't know where I went wrong. I did love you once." Maybe a part of me still does," she admitted. "But one day, I just woke up, and there was this emptiness inside me I couldn't explain." Her eyes dropped to her lap before she found the courage to continue. "Not long after I started feeling disconnected," she said quietly. "Everything unraveled. I lashed out at you because you still showed me love, even though, inside, I had already drifted away. Ryan noticed the shift between us and began deliberately pushing me. It only took a few weeks before I crossed a line I couldn't come back from. He exploited my doubts, pulled me in, and turned the guilt he planted inside me into a tool for his own revenge. You might not have seen it, but Ryan always envied you, your leadership, your accomplishments. He convinced me to open an account under your name, setting you up to take the fall for stolen money. We counted on the fact that people trusted you without question. By the time the deception came to light, Ryan planned for us to disappear with the cash. We thought we were untouchable if everything collapsed. And through it all, you didn't even realize you were watching me fall apart, I said, my voice trembling with barely contained anger. She nodded slowly, sorrow filling her expression. At first, I fought back, she whispered, but Ryan stripped away every part of me that resisted. In his mind, the plan wouldn't work unless you were completely destroyed. You almost pulled it off, I said, my words cutting like ice. If Detective Randall and Maya hadn't stepped in, you probably would have, I added. The silence that followed was suffocating, until Kendra finally spoke, her voice barely audible. May I see them? She asked. Understanding her meaning, I placed my scarred hands on the table. Her breath caught. She instinctively reached out, then withdrew her hand, tears sliding down her cheeks. A hurricane of emotions surged inside me, fury, shame, and surprisingly, a stubborn love that refused to die. Kendra must have sensed the battle inside me, her eyes locked with mine. I'm so sorry, Brandon, she said earnestly. I'm disgusted by what I did. I won't fight the conviction. I'll serve every day of my 20-year sentence. It's what I deserve. I gave her a small nod, a strange relief washing over me at the thought of her finally paying for her betrayal. She lifted her gaze again, her tone softer now. You were never cruel to me. You were better than Ryan ever dreamed of being. He was selfish. You weren't. After a hesitant pause, she added, There's no excuse for the way I treated you that last morning. We sat there, the space between us thick with unresolved pain. Then she asked cautiously, You and Maya? Yeah, I said, uncertainty bleeding through my answer. Kendra managed a fragile smile. I'm glad, she said quietly. She's loved you for such a long time. I only just realized, I admitted. Kendra's voice wavered, raw with regret. I hope she loves you fiercely, Brandon. I hope she helps you heal from the wounds I left behind. She'll never betray you like I did. She's everything I'm not, Kendra said with a soft, broken laugh. Kendra, I started, then stopped, unsure how to finish the sentence. Don't worry, she said, gently wiping away a tear from my face with her sleeve. You've been more fair to me than I deserved. I released a heavy breath. Kendra, once, I loved you more deeply than you could ever know. If you had just been honest with me, maybe none of this would have happened. I'm trying to let go of it, but there's still so much rage inside me. Sometimes I want to scream at you, or I clenched my fists, unable to finish. I made the decision to stop fighting for my life, I said bitterly. That's my burden to bear. Another long silence hung over us, filled with everything we couldn't bring ourselves to say. Finally, Kendra whispered, I'm sorry, Brandon. You deserved better than what I gave you. I bear part of the blame for driving you to the edge. I'll never be free from this shame, she added, her voice breaking. I read your letter. You were right. I'll carry this guilt for the rest of my life. But I thank God you're still here. My jaw tightened as I wrestled with a flood of emotions. How could she say these things now, after everything she'd done? I didn't reply. Instead, I changed the subject, desperate for some emotional distance. Because of what we once shared, I offered to handle your finances, I said, forcing my voice to stay even. When you get out, there'll be enough for you to start over, if you want to. She noticed the strain in my voice, but chose to play along, giving a short, bitter laugh. I'll be in my 60s by then, she said, shaking her head in disbelief. Might be just enough to retire. Keep living, I said quietly. You could make it to 80. We shifted into talking about more practical things, bank accounts, future plans, easing some of the tension between us, but I knew she wasn't finished. "Have you heard from Gabriella?" Kendra asked carefully. I shook my head. "She cut me out completely. She believed your lies without ever asking for my side of the story. After that phone call..." My voice broke, and I turned away, wiping my face. If I had looked, I would have seen Kendra crying too. Staring blankly at the wall, I kept speaking. Maya tried to reach out when I was hospitalized, but Gabriella never answered. Nothing changed. I sat back down, and Kendra mirrored me, both of us pretending not to notice each other's tears. "I'm sorry, Brandon," Kendra said thickly through her tears. "Ryan and we planned that too, turning Gabriella against you." I gave a stiff nod, my face hardening as the full weight of her betrayal sank deeper. Kendra bowed her head, shame pouring off her like a heavy rain. She had destroyed the relationship I had with my daughter, and only now was she admitting it. "If it matters," Kendra said in a voice thick with sorrow, "Gabriella won't talk to me either. She's hurt, afraid, and there's nothing I can do to fix it." She inhaled shakily before continuing. "Brandon, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but could you try to forgive Gabriella? She needs at least one parent to stay in her life. Even if I weren't in prison, my guilt would have ruined everything between us." "Please," she whispered. "Please be there for our daughter." "Kendra," I said slowly, each word weighted with pain. "What you're asking, it's not simple. You hurt me more than anyone else ever has. But when Gabriella told me she considered me dead to her..." I paused, struggling to breathe past the lump in my throat. "That wounded me deeper than anything you ever did. I wanted to rebuild the bridge between us, but the pain from what had happened between you two still clung to me, and I didn't know how to let it go." Kendra gave a subtle nod, her expression full of sympathy. "I get it," she whispered, acknowledging the effort I was making, even though the path ahead was still uncertain. I exhaled heavily. "Kendra," I said quietly, "I'm really trying not to hate you," I confessed. "I'm working through it with a therapist, but there are days when I just want to scream at you. As for Gabriella, maybe I'll reach out, but I can't promise anything." Kendra's face seemed to collapse under the weight of my words. Slowly rising from her chair, she said, "Brandon, I know it might not mean much, but I am so sorry. I can't excuse my actions," she added, "and I realize now that nothing I do can ever undo them. The only thing left for me is to serve my sentence and hope that one day you might find it in your heart to forgive me." Her eyes locked onto mine, sorrow etched into every line of her face. "You may doubt it, but I never stopped loving you. I lost myself for a while, but that love never went away." The room fell into a profound silence, broken only by the quiet sound of Kendra's tears. She rapped lightly on the door, and her guard opened it. Just before stepping out, she turned to face me one last time. "Love Maya, Brandon," she said, her voice cracking. "Give her the love I foolishly threw away. Live a good life. Keep your head held high," she continued, her voice trembling. "There are people who truly love you. Don't ever lose sight of that the way I did. I'm proud of you, Brandon. You're finding yourself again." Her voice wavered with emotion. "Goodbye, my beautiful man." "I'll carry you in my heart," Kendra whispered, then disappeared through the door. Left alone, I sat there absorbing everything that had just unfolded. There had been no shouting, no anger. Kendra had accepted what she had done and the consequences it carried. As I left the room, I noticed faint tear stains trailing where she had walked. I stood still for a moment, honoring the past, before I turned to move forward. My heart lifted when I saw Maya waiting in the gallery, radiant even in such a heavy moment. "How did it go?" she asked softly. "Better than I thought it would," I answered. Honestly, it caught me off guard. I expected her to deflect blame, but instead, she owned everything and showed true remorse. Maya studied me closely. "And how are you feeling about that?" she asked. I breathed out slowly. "I'm still furious with both her and Ryan," I admitted. "But with Kendra, there's also sadness. She knows she wrecked everything," I said quietly, "and she's paying the price now. Gabriella has cut ties with her too." Maya nodded thoughtfully, then hesitated. "Jason and Gabriella are nearby," she said. "Jason told me they're at the cafe across the street. They were hoping to see you. Apparently," she added, "Jason and Gabriella argued about how she treated you. Gabriella really wants to talk to you." I drew in a long breath, thinking it over. "Do you think I should?" I asked. Maya gave a gentle nod. "Yes, my love. There's a wound inside you that only Gabriella can help heal," she said. "But I'll be right beside you through all of it. And if it gets too hard, I'll shield you with everything I have." Her eyes shimmered with emotion. "I love you, Brandon." I leaned in and kissed her tenderly. "I love you too, Maya." It was the first time I'd said it aloud in public, and for once, I didn't care who witnessed it. Maya was my home now. "Let's go," I said, and together we walked hand in hand to the cafe. Inside, we spotted Jason and Gabriella. Gabriella looked frozen between running to me and running away. Without a second thought, I opened my arms and she rushed into them, clutching me tightly, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she kept repeating between cries. Over her shoulder, I caught Maya's warm, supportive smile and Jason's uncertain, awkward look. After a moment, I gently pulled Gabriella back so we could all sit down. "I just came from seeing your mom," I said, my voice low. Gabriella nodded slightly. "I know, Dad." "I'm so sorry," she began, but I lifted my hand to gently stop her. "Gabby, listen to me," I said. "Your mother explained some things, but the truth is, your words hurt me more than I can express. It felt like being deserted by the one person I thought would never leave me." The shame was clear on Gabriella's face. "Dad, she began, but then she gathered herself, sitting straighter. "No, I have to say this. I should have let you explain," she admitted. "But I didn't. I let Mom and Ryan fill my head with lies, that you were guilty, that you were going to prison, that you had betrayed us all." She glanced at Maya, her face stricken. "By the time you reached out, I was so filled with anger. I said horrible things I'll regret for the rest of my life." Jason spoke up, his voice thick with regret. "That's what a lot of the fighting between us was about," he said. "When Maya left messages about your hospitalization, I thought it was just a ploy. Mom and Ryan made us believe it was all part of some scheme." Gabriella looked at me, and then at Maya, her expression collapsing under the weight of guilt. "But it wasn't, was it, Dad?" she whispered, unable to finish the thought, and none of us had the strength to complete it for her. I nodded slowly, and with trembling hands showed them my scars. "I'm sorry, Gabby," I said softly. "I was in a very dark place, and I made a horrible mistake. I was drunk and didn't see a way out." Speaking the words nearly broke me, but Gabriella needed the truth. She crumbled into fresh sobs, covering her face with her hands. Maya squeezed my arm tightly, grounding me as the waves of emotion surged between us. We sat there in heavy silence until Jason, attempting to break the tension, spoke up carefully. "I know this is a lot," he said, "but can I hope something good came out of this?" he asked, glancing between Maya and me. Gabriella lifted her tear-streaked face, and her eyes widened as she realized something. "Dad, are you and Maya together now?" Gabriella asked gently. I nodded, feeling the need to explain. "It wasn't an affair, despite what your mother said. I never betrayed her," I assured her. "When I was in the hospital, Maya never left my side, even when others doubted me. At the beginning, even she believed some of what Ryan and your mom accused me of. I went on. But over time, we found each other again, and I realized just how much she truly cared. Maya's cheeks turned pink, and she looped her arms around me, planting a quick kiss on my cheek. Jason offered a warm, approving smile, and after a few tense moments, Gabriella managed to compose herself. "Thank you," she said softly to Maya. "Thank you for being there for my dad," Gabriella added. Maya let out a light laugh, easing the tension in the room, and the evening unfolded naturally as we traded memories and laughter. At one point, Gabriella even switched seats with Maya just to give me a hug. That afternoon didn't erase all the hurt, but it laid the foundation for rebuilding. Over the next few months, with the help of therapy sessions and honest conversations, Gabriella and I began to mend our relationship. One particularly difficult counseling session led to me asking Gabriella not to cut her mother out of her life completely. I reminded her that, for better or worse, Kendra was still her mom, and she was already facing the consequences of her actions. Gabriella agreed, but only if I would join her for the first visit. That visit was strained and emotionally exhausting, and afterward, we barely spoke of it. Still, Gabriella continued reaching out, and a week later, Kendra sent me a letter, thanking me for encouraging Gabriella to visit. 6 months later, after life had settled, I proposed to Maya during a family dinner. Tessa and Gabriella both laughed and said it was about time, and Jason shook my hand, joking that I should remember my own advice to him: take good care of her. Not long after, Gabriella and Jason tied the knot with my blessing. In a touching act, Maya even went to visit Kendra in prison to ask permission to stand in as mother of the bride. Overwhelmed with emotion, Kendra gave her blessing. At the wedding, little Tessa served proudly as our flower girl, happily calling herself my second daughter. From that day onward, I wasn't just Uncle Brandon anymore. I was simply Dad. Walking Gabriella down the aisle, I felt the last fragments of past hurts finally fall away. Later, Gabriella sent her mother some wedding photos along with a heartfelt letter, thanking her for allowing Maya to step into the role. I later heard that Kendra had pinned them to her prison cell wall. Meanwhile, the legal proceedings against Ryan and Kendra came to a conclusion. Rachel, our brilliant attorney, negotiated a substantial settlement for Maya and me. Caleb tried to resist, but just before the trial was set to begin, he made a lowball offer that Rachel flatly refused. Eventually, we hammered out a strong agreement. Maya received a hefty 6-figure sum, and I secured a 7-figure payout. It wasn't the public spectacle Caleb had dreaded, but it was enough to push him into an early retirement and force the sale of his company at a reduced price. With our settlement, Maya and I founded our own engineering consulting firm, blending her management skills and my technical expertise. Within half a year, we had 5 employees on the payroll and major projects across the country. Among our first clients was Philip Preston, who personally invited us to dinner to offer his apologies. He admitted that without my engineering work, one of their major developments had nearly collapsed. Since then, we've been regular guests at Preston events, even when we're not directly involved. Philip turned out to be a good man, caught in a tough situation, determined to make amends. We sold Maya's cozy old cottage and bought a spacious home overlooking Kings Park. It was a 5-bedroom, 3-bath fixer-upper, but over the next 2 years, we lovingly restored it, taking breaks only for family events, including Gabriella and Jason's wedding and the birth of my grandson, Benjamin. Life kept getting better, even though now and then old nightmares would visit me. Whenever they did, Maya was there to hold me through them. Before I knew it, years had flown by, and Benjamin was heading off to law school, following in Aunt Rachel's footsteps. One lazy Saturday afternoon, Gabriella and Jason joined Maya and me on the terrace overlooking the park. Inside, Benjamin and my younger grandson, Blake, were absorbed in an Xbox game, while little Holly tried her best to squeeze in between them. As we relaxed, Gabriella hesitated before bringing up a sensitive topic. Dad, she said carefully, I got a letter from Mom this week. Though Kendra was never a forbidden subject, we always treated mentions of her with quiet respect. Over the years, Kendra had written to me, and I had visited her occasionally. She was enrolled in treatment programs and had earned some respect in prison, though she still had 8 years left on her sentence. What did she say? I asked. Gabriella glanced down, then replied, She said Ryan was released last month. I took a measured sip of my drink, feeling Maya slip her hand into mine for support. Anything else? Maya asked gently. Gabriella nodded. Yeah, he showed up to see her. She said he didn't look good, and it wasn't a pleasant visit. I'm planning to visit her next week to hear more. After a short conversation, I decided to call Derek Randall, now head of major crimes and a trusted friend. Brandon, great to hear from you. How's Maya doing? Derek greeted me warmly. She's doing great, I said. But I just found out Ryan's out. Derek's tone immediately grew serious. Yeah, I got the update yesterday. Meant to tell you at bowling next week. He's relocating to Adelaide. Found some work. Told his probation officer he still blames you for ruining his life. He's been through a lot, but honestly, he's unlikely to cause serious trouble, Derek continued. Still, we're keeping tabs on him. Thanks, Derek. Just wanted to make sure, I said. We chatted briefly about bowling night and an upcoming barbecue before I hung up and rejoined the family. Maya asked quietly, Derek? I nodded. He confirmed it. Ryan's moving to Adelaide, and he still hates me, I said simply. I glanced around at my family, smiled, and added, and the feeling's mutual. The rest of the afternoon drifted by peacefully, although my family went out of their way to remind me I was never truly on my own. That night, I jolted awake, drenched in sweat and crying out from a nightmare, something I hadn't experienced in many years. In the dream, Ryan loomed over my loved ones with threats, pushing me dangerously close to picking up the razor once more. Maya was at my side instantly, her instincts kicking in as she rushed to comfort me. Without hesitating, she grabbed the phone and dialed my therapist, who, despite the late hour, answered with reassuring calmness. Gasping for breath, I struggled to recount the nightmare while Maya sat beside me, silently crying. Talking it through helped peel away some of the terror, and my therapist gently suggested that the resurfacing fear, stirred up by news of Ryan's release, had likely sparked the dream. We arranged another session to address it more deeply. When the call ended, Maya slipped quietly into Benjamin's room to check on him. He remained undisturbed, sleeping peacefully. Tessa, who had been roused by the noise, settled back down after catching pieces of our conversation through the door. When I finally settled back under the covers, Maya nestled herself close to me. In a hushed voice, heavy with concern, she asked, Do you think Ryan will try anything? I don't think so, I replied. He's going to disappear, and we'll never hear from him again. And if he does show his face, I added, thinking of the hunting gear tucked safely away. We're prepared. She gave a small nod, her forehead brushing my shoulder. It hurts to see this shake you so much. Are you really okay? She asked. I hesitated, then said, Sort of. The wounds from those dark years would never entirely vanish. They'd always leave faint traces behind, quiet reminders of what had been. But I clung fiercely to the good. I had Maya, the woman who had rescued me in every way that counted. She gazed up at me with a fierce, steady love. I love you, Brandon, she whispered. I love you too, Maya, I breathed back. Eventually, sleep found me again. Life wasn't perfect, and probably never would be, but the bright days outshone the dark ones by far. Sure, arguments still surfaced. Nightmares would occasionally steal back into the night. Hardships came and went like passing storms, yet through it all, I had the enduring love of a woman who never gave up on me, friends who stayed firm at my side, and a family whose strength carried me through even the fiercest battles. Our first story wraps up here, but don't click away. Another thrilling tale is just about to start. Let's dive in. At least your brother knows how to make me feel like a real woman." The sentence floated between us, poisonous and heavy, contaminating the small space we shared. I watched Caroline's mouth curve into a satisfied, almost cruel smile, her hand methodically slicing vegetables, the knife striking the cutting board with brutal, mechanical precision. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Each sound echoed inside my skull, fracturing everything I believed about my life. I stood motionless. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. Some deep, hidden part of me, a part I'd refused to face, had already suspected the truth. I had noticed the signs slowly piling up, each one another cold drop filling an overflowing barrel. The whispers in the other room, the secretive late-night texts, the sudden desperate need my brother, Matt, had for Caroline's advice, her company, her time. Now, as she calmly diced carrots for our dinner, I understood that I would never be able to touch that meal. A strange, almost unnatural calmness settled over me. It wasn't acceptance. It was the raw, piercing clarity that follows devastation. The knife caught the overhead light, flashing dangerously like a warning signal, and in that instant, I knew exactly what I needed to do. "Dinner's at 7 on Saturday," I said, keeping my voice level, detached. "I'll send out a group message. Family gathering." Her knife froze mid-air. I caught the briefest glimpse of something, doubt or maybe fear, flicker across her face before she buried it under a practiced mask of casual indifference. "What's the occasion?" she asked, trying to sound offhand. I locked eyes with her, my face revealing nothing. Family, truth, the things that actually count. She resumed chopping, but a small crease had formed between her eyebrows. "That sounds ominous," she said. "Does it?" I replied lightly, reaching for an apple from the bowl and buffing it against my shirt. "I just think it's about time we all sat down together. Invite your parents too," I added casually. "My parents?" she repeated, confused now, her uncertainty genuine. "They're still in Florida until next month." I nodded slowly, taking a bite from the apple. It was utterly flavorless. Right. Forgot. Just immediate family, then. As I walked out of the kitchen, I could feel her eyes boring into my back, probing, trying to uncover my angle. For the first time in longer than I could remember, she was the one off balance. It wasn't triumph. It was simply the first step. "My name is Daniel Westbrook. I'm 38 years old and the chief architect at Meridian Design Group, the firm my father built from the ground up and handed down to me. Matt, always the favored son with his polished charm and shiny MBA, was groomed to handle the business side. We were supposed to be a team, two brothers, blood-bound and driven. That had always been the vision. I was the reliable one, the planner, the builder. Even as kids, I was the one drafting complex forts and constructing them stick by stick, while Matt sweet-talked our parents into delivering snacks and supplies. I created, he performed. I labored, he basked in praise, and I hadn't resented him for it. That was simply the dynamic between us. I trusted him. I trusted both of us. Caroline and I lived in a brownstone in Boston's Back Bay, a wedding gift from me to her. I had spent countless late nights before our marriage restoring it by hand, determined to craft the perfect home for our life together. I can still see it in my mind's eye, the way I carried her over the threshold, her laughter filling the empty, newly finished rooms, every surface gleaming with possibility. "This is too much, Daniel," she whispered then, awestruck by the crown molding I'd refinished, the custom kitchen designed for her love of cooking, the sun-warmed alcove lined with shelves made just for her art books. "Nothing is too much for you," I had told her, meaning every word. Now, the brownstone felt like a tomb, each memory trapped in amber, rotting from within. Christmas mornings, laughter-filled dinner parties, quiet Sundays reading in the sunlit nook, all poisoned now. Had she already been comparing me to him back then? Already finding me lacking? My proudest accomplishment had become the grave of a marriage that, maybe, had been hollow from the start. I'd installed a security system 6 months ago, not out of distrust, but because a neighbor's house had been burglarized. Top of the line, motion detectors, cameras monitoring every entrance and key rooms for when we traveled. I hadn't given it much thought until 3 weeks ago. That night, I was stuck at the office, wrestling through the final environmental report for the Harborview project. My biggest, most career-defining project yet. A sweeping redesign of the Boston waterfront that would leave my mark on the city for decades. Caroline had been my loudest cheerleader, urging me to grab the opportunity even if it demanded my every waking moment. "This is your moment," she'd said, working the tension from my shoulders as I reviewed blueprints. "I'll take care of everything else." So generous. So understanding. It was nearly midnight, my eyes gritty with exhaustion, when my phone vibrated. Motion detected in the guest room at 11:42 p.m. I almost dismissed it. Caroline often read there when she couldn't sleep. But something, a thin, sharp voice born from 100 small doubts, compelled me to check the camera feed. My stomach twisted violently. There was Matt, using his own key to walk into my home. There was Caroline, waiting for him in the hall, draped in a silk robe I had never seen before, diaphanous, clinging to her body in ways that made my chest seize. Their embrace wasn't one between family. Matt's hands slid down her back, slow and possessive. Together, they slipped into the guest bedroom, shutting the door behind them. I sat there, paralyzed, my eyes locked on the live feed. The minutes ticked by, each one heavier than the last. I should have ended it right then, should have called, confronted, torn the lie apart. But instead, I sat, frozen in place, as the betrayal unfolded before me, undeniable and cruel. They remained inside for exactly 2 hours and 17 minutes. At 1:59 a.m., my brother emerged. Caroline headed straight for the shower without saying a word. Over coffee the next morning, she casually mentioned that she had gone to bed early, claiming a terrible headache. "I was worried about you," she said, her face a perfect mask of concerned affection. "You've been overworking yourself." "Did you see my message?" she asked. I hadn't, or maybe I had, and it hadn't even registered, my mind too clouded by what I'd witnessed. I mumbled something about getting lost in a design sprint and apologized for missing it. She gave me a tender smile and squeezed my hand. "I know how important this project is to you," she said warmly. That night, instead of staying late at the office like usual, I came home early, saying I needed a break. We watched a movie together. Her head rested lightly against my shoulder, her familiar perfume, the same one she wore when she was with my brother, turning my stomach. After she drifted off to sleep, I quietly pulled up old security footage. A pattern revealed itself almost immediately. Every time I worked late, they were inside my home. Sometimes they lingered afterward, sitting at the kitchen table, sipping wine, laughing. Once, I even heard my name. Daniel's clueless. He trusts too easily. "He's drowning in work," Matt's voice said. Matt, my brother, the eternal builder, too busy with blueprints to see the betrayal happening right in front of him. Caroline laughed, high and careless. "That's what makes it easy," she said with a giggle. "He's still shattered after Lauren left. Even if he found out, he'd just try to fix it. That's Daniel, the fixer." Their laughter sliced through me like broken glass. But the real pain wasn't the footage. It was realizing just how calculated it all had been. Caroline had been the one to push me toward the Harborview contract, fully knowing it would demand countless late nights. She had insisted we continue our Thursday family dinners, giving Matt the perfect opportunity to mourn his heartbreak and settle into our lives. "Your brother needs you," she'd said sweetly. "Family first." And like a fool, I agreed when she suggested Matt stay in our guest room for a while. He never really moved in, but he had a key. "For emergencies," Caroline insisted. Digging deeper, I found more. Their text history, easily available through our shared cloud backup, unfolded like a carefully mapped betrayal. Secret meetings, synchronized lies, cruel jokes at my expense, mocking my loyalty, laughing at my blind faith. They had been sleeping together for 4 months, but they had been laughing at me far longer. After overhearing Caroline hiss a venomous comment about me in the kitchen one night, full of contempt, I knew I had to act. Methodically, I contacted Thomas Grayson, a ruthless but discreet attorney I had used in the past, and scheduled a confidential meeting for the next morning. "I need options," I said, "and complete secrecy." That night, I slept in the guest room, telling Caroline I didn't want to wake her with my early call. The sheets were clean, but the air felt tainted. I lay awake, building my strategy. Thomas moved quickly. Massachusetts didn't factor fault into divorces, but because of our prenup's infidelity clause, with evidence, Caroline would leave with nothing. And the footage wasn't just proof of her cheating, it showed her conspiring against my family's business. Grounds for claims like emotional distress, even conspiracy. "Are you trying to destroy her?" Thomas asked. "I'm after justice," I replied. The week between uncovering the truth and the upcoming family gathering felt surreal. I floated through meetings, signed off on budgets, kept operations moving. Around the office, people joked about my laser focus. "Daniel's on fire," someone said. If only they knew. At home, I played the part. Loving husband, caring partner. I asked about her day, nodded along to her plans for the weekend, studied her every move like a biologist observing a specimen. The woman I once adored now seemed like an actress wearing a flawless mask. She kissed my cheek, squeezed my hand, asked about the Harborview project with bright, eager eyes. "Are you excited for Saturday's dinner?" she asked one night as we got ready for bed. "It'll be nice to have everyone together," she added cheerfully. "Very much," I answered, folding my clothes slowly, deliberately. "I think it'll be unforgettable." She smiled, the same smile that used to make my heart pound. Now, it turned my blood to ice. "You've seemed different lately," she said. "More intense." I nodded. Big deadlines, lots going on. She accepted the excuse without hesitation. "You're burning the candle at both ends. Maybe after the dinner we should plan a little getaway." "Just us," she suggested, her voice tender. I almost laughed. "That sounds perfect," I lied smoothly. "I'd love that." Meanwhile, I documented everything. I installed hidden cameras throughout the house, in the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom. I backed up every text, every email, every call. I quietly transferred funds into protected accounts. I sat down with my personal banker to review ways to better shield my finances. When he raised an eyebrow at the pattern of heavy withdrawals, I brushed it off with a casual lie. Extensive home renovations. A surprise for my wife, I claimed, and it would be, just not the kind she was hoping for. I spent endless evenings poring over the fine print of our prenuptial agreement with Thomas, my attorney, scrutinizing every loophole, every technicality. At one point, I even showed him select excerpts from the recordings I had collected. "Jesus, Daniel," he breathed, almost to himself. "Your brother." "Not anymore," I replied, my voice devoid of feeling. Caroline either hadn't noticed the widening gulf between us or had decided it wasn't worth her concern. Her attention was elsewhere, spent crafting secret rendezvous with Matt, oblivious to the fact that every message was captured, every whisper logged and preserved. "He's been acting weird," she texted Matt early Friday morning. "More attentive." "Think he knows?" "Daniel?" "Not a chance," Matt shot back. "Probably just stressed from work. Don't let it get to you." "Saturday might be a little awkward with everyone there," she replied. "But it'll blow over. Just a few hours to get through," she added. "After that, we'll be fine. Dad's bringing the partnership papers. Once that's signed, we'll have more room to maneuver." 3 days before the event, on Wednesday, I arranged to meet my father for lunch. Not at our usual bustling city restaurant. but at a small, discreet spot well outside the urban sprawl. The place had dimly lit booths and a staff trained to value discretion over service. My father looked more worn than I remembered, new lines etched around his eyes, streaks of silver threading his hair. Meridian, the company he had spent his life building, had survived recessions, personal tragedies, even my mother's brush with cancer years ago. It was never just a business to him. It was his soul's work. "Everything all right, son?" he asked, watching me closely with the kind of perceptiveness that rarely missed anything. I stalled, moving my fork through my food without taking a bite. "I need to ask you something," I said eventually. "The new partnership agreement, is it set in stone yet?" He frowned slightly, caught off guard. "Not quite," he said. "The lawyers are still finishing up the final draft. Matt's share will be identical to yours, just like we agreed." I gave a slow nod. "And if circumstances changed? If Matt became unsuitable?" His expression sharpened instantly. "Is there something I should know?" he asked, voice low. "You'll understand everything on Saturday," I told him, holding his gaze steadily. He studied me in silence, then gave a small nod. My father had never been one to demand answers before their time. He understood the value of patience. "I trust your judgment, Daniel," he said at last. "I always have." Those words stayed with me as the final pieces of my plan fell into place. At least one person in my family still believed in me. I thought about our wedding day. Caroline radiant in her gown, pledging eternal loyalty. Matt standing beside me, my best man, delivering a toast about brotherhood and trust, his hand heavy on my shoulder. I thought about teaching Matt how to ride his bike when he was a boy, cleaning up his skinned knees, reassuring him through tears. I remembered standing up for him at school, defending him from bullies who mocked his sensitive nature. I remembered the Christmas party where I introduced him to Caroline, beaming with pride. "My brilliant kid brother," I had said. "The financial wizard who's going to help me run the family firm one day." As Saturday drew closer, these memories looped through my mind, each one cutting deeper, not because of what I had lost, but because I saw now it had never truly existed. The brother I thought I had, the wife I thought loved me. They were illusions, reflections of my own misplaced loyalty. Then Saturday arrived. The morning disappeared in a rush of last-minute preparations, adjusting hidden cameras, checking projector cables, confirming everything was in place. Caroline stayed busy too, fluttering around the house, setting up platters of food, arranging fresh bouquets, completely unsuspecting. At one point, she brushed my arm lightly. "You're acting strange," she said with a playful smile. I smiled back. "Just thinking about tonight," I said. "Family. Milestones." She leaned in and kissed my cheek. "You're such a sweetheart," she whispered, "always thinking of everyone else." At exactly 7, the guests began to arrive. My parents, my older sister and her husband, a few cousins, my aunt, and finally, Matt, sliding in last, hugging Caroline a little longer than propriety allowed. Dinner was served, glasses filled, conversations weaving easily through the evening. I observed it all from a distance, detached, like a man watching a well-rehearsed play unfold on a stage he no longer belonged to. My father talked about expansion plans for Meridian. My mother enthused about her garden club's latest projects. My sister laughed over her children's latest escapades. And through it all, the stolen glances, the staged indifference between Caroline and Matt. It was all so transparent now. A clumsy charade, barely convincing to anyone truly paying attention. When dessert was set on the table, I rose, wineglass in hand. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight," I said, voice calm and clear. "Family is everything. Loyalty is everything. Truth is everything." I discreetly pressed the hidden button on the remote tucked inside my jacket pocket. Immediately, the room's lights dimmed to a soft glow, and a sleek projection screen glided down noiselessly from the ceiling, an installation I had arranged just days earlier under the pretense of creating a cozy family movie space for Caroline. "I have something I need everyone to see," I said calmly. Right on cue, the video began, crystal clear in picture and rich with sound. There they were, Caroline and Matt, exposed in full color on the screen, inside the guest bedroom. Their hushed conversations and intimate betrayals played out in brutal detail. Matt's voice, though slightly distorted, was easily identifiable as he sneered, "Daniel hasn't got a clue. He trusts you completely." Caroline's responding laugh was like ice. "He thinks you're struggling, that you need him," she said with a smirk. "Even if he found out you were screwing his wife, he'd still try to make it better." Matt chuckled, low and bitter. "That's my brother for you, always fixing what's broken. Shame he couldn't build a wife who wouldn't stray." Their ugly laughter rang through the dining room like a slap across the face. The footage continued, chronicling weeks of secret meetings and whispered schemes, plots to siphon money, conversations about manipulating business shares. "Once your father hands over part of the company to Daniel," Caroline whispered, "we'll finally have the leverage we need." I let the video play for 12 full minutes, long enough that there could be no confusion, no denial. When I finally clicked the remote to stop it, the room fell into a heavy, crushing silence. My mother's complexion was ghostly white. My sister sat frozen, her hand clamped tightly over her mouth. My father remained completely still, his eyes locked on Matt, whose face had gone ashen. Caroline didn't even dare look up. She stared blankly at the tablecloth, her hands twisting a napkin until her knuckles blanched. I drew a breath. "Dad," I said, keeping my voice low and even, "I thought you should know exactly who you were about to entrust with our family's legacy." Wordlessly, my father stood. Reaching into his jacket, he withdrew an envelope, the draft of the partnership agreement he had planned to announce that evening. Without hesitation, he tore it in two, then ripped it again, scattering the shreds across the table. His voice, when he finally spoke, was quiet, but lethal. "Get out of my house," he told Matt coldly. "You're no longer my son." Matt tried to protest, opening his mouth to speak, but my father cut him off with a sharp, commanding gesture. "Not one word," he said. "No excuses, no apologies. Leave. Now." Stumbling clumsily to his feet, Matt turned to go. As he did, I shifted my attention to Caroline. From inside my jacket, I produced a thick, manila envelope. "These are divorce papers," I said, each word slicing through the air. "Already filed. The infidelity clause in our prenup has been triggered. You leave with nothing. You have 48 hours to remove your belongings," I continued. "Anything you leave behind will be donated." For the first time, Caroline looked at me, her eyes wide and desperate. "Daniel, you can't," she started. "I already have," I cut her off sharply. "Thomas Grayson is handling everything," I added. "He'll also be filing civil suits for emotional distress, conspiracy, defamation. We have more than enough evidence." Turning back to the stunned gathering, I finished, "I'm sorry for the scene." But the truth needed to be known. Without another word, I stepped away from the table and made my way upstairs to my office. Behind me, the uproar erupted. My mother's sobbing, my father's furious, low-voiced orders, Caroline's panicked cries. None of it touched me. Inside my office, I felt only an icy clarity. The necessary thing had been done. Justice had begun. 2 months later, I sat across from Thomas Grayson at his law office, idly flipping through the finalized documents. "Matt's finished," Thomas said matter-of-factly. "Your father's reputation crushed him. No firm in Boston will hire him. Last I heard, he's answering phones at a call center in Dorchester, barely scraping by." "And Caroline?" I asked. Thomas leaned back. "Even worse," he said. "The judge didn't take kindly to evidence of them conspiring to embezzle company funds. What started as a simple infidelity case turned into something criminal. Her parents took her back, but the public disgrace was complete. He added, "She lost her job at the gallery. Apparently your father had a quiet word with the owner. No one in your social circle will even acknowledge her now." I nodded, feeling no triumph, only the grim satisfaction of consequences falling where they belonged. "The house sold too," Thomas continued. "As you instructed, half the proceeds went to the children's hospital. Your new condo is ready when you are." I signed the last of the papers, feeling a final weight lift. As I rose to leave, Thomas hesitated. "Daniel," he said carefully, "I've seen a lot of betrayals in my time. Most people self-destruct when it happens. You were surgical." I considered his words as I made my way to the parking lot. The truth was, I hadn't felt controlled or clinical. What had driven me was something deep, primal, not a thirst for revenge, but an urgent need to excise the rot completely. I hadn't set out to destroy Matt and Caroline. I had simply needed to remove them as thoroughly as a surgeon removing a malignant tumor. 6 months after that devastating dinner, I bumped into Caroline's mother in a grocery store. She looked like a hollowed-out version of herself, worn, defeated, and aged beyond her years. The aftermath had spread uncontrollably, dragging down everyone remotely associated with us. She told me she was moving to Chicago, her voice sharp and brittle. She needed a clean break, she said. She confessed to a sin beyond redemption. I gave her a small, empty nod, feeling nothing. Her mother continued speaking, mentioning she had lost yet another job, her tone probing for some shred of sympathy. The past clung to Caroline like a stubborn stain no employer wanted to touch. I idly turned an apple over in my palm, inspecting it for blemishes. "That's unfortunate," I said. Mrs. Ellis's hands tightened on her handbag until her knuckles whitened. "Matt calls your parents every week," she offered. "They never answer." "His fiancée left him," she added, her voice catching slightly. "You knew he was engaged again, right?" I hadn't heard, and frankly, it made no difference to me. That part of my life had long since lost any power to affect me. "Your father destroyed Matt's reputation in finance across all of New England," she went on, the words spilling out in a rush. "He's driving trucks now." I met her stare without flinching. "Mrs. Ellis," I said steadily, "what exactly are you hoping to accomplish with this?" She drew back, just a little. They made a horrible mistake, Daniel. An unforgivable one. But this level of devastation— Not devastation, I corrected quietly. Accountability. Accountability. I paid for my groceries and left her standing there, her face contorting with anger and despair. I felt no pity for her sorrow, none for Caroline's hardships, and none for Matt's downfall. Whatever trace of compassion I might have once had for them had been severed the night I heard the truth in my own kitchen, and saw the revulsion in the eyes of a woman who once swore she loved me. Later that evening, I stood on the balcony of my new condo, overlooking Boston's glittering skyline. In the distance, the Harborview project rose against the waterfront, a living monument to my vision. I cradled a glass of scotch loosely in my fingers. In my mind, I replayed that pivotal family dinner, the shock, the crumbling illusions, the satisfaction of justice delivered with surgical precision. Earlier, my parents had called. They were adapting well to our new circumstances. My father had restructured the firm entirely, elevating a gifted young architect to be my right hand. The business was thriving. My mother, for the first time in months, spoke of Matt, but only in hushed, mournful tones, the kind reserved for the dead. And in many ways, he was. The brother I had once protected and loved had never truly existed, any more than the wife I believed in had. Both had been illusions, spun out of lies. Last week, a letter arrived from Caroline, her handwriting instantly recognizable. I hadn't opened it. Without hesitation, I returned it unopened. There was nothing left she could say that would matter. I hadn't merely walked away from their betrayal, I had ensured it would define the rest of their lives, not out of pettiness, but because cruelty demands consequences equal to its crime. That night had not simply been about exposing their affair. It had been about tearing down every mask, forcing everyone who mattered to us to see them clearly at last. Their disdain, their manipulation, their betrayal of a family that had only ever shown them generosity. It had all been laid bare. Later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Caroline had attempted to re-enter the dating world, but her infamy always preceded her. In Boston's insular circles, being known as the woman who slept with her husband's brother and whose betrayal had been caught on video was a mark that never faded. She eventually shut down her social media after anonymous accounts began circulating clips. Despite my lawyer's best efforts to contain the footage, pieces had still leaked, not, I suspected, by accident. My father's influence, relentless and far-reaching, had likely ensured it. As for Matt, his career had crumbled beyond repair. No respectable firm would associate with him now. The name that once opened doors was now a curse that slammed them shut. My father had supervised his complete downfall. The inheritance Matt once took for granted? Gone. The brother who had always pulled him out of trouble? Gone. The woman he had sacrificed everything for? Out of reach. I took a long, slow sip from my glass, feeling, for the first time in what felt like forever, a deep, genuine peace. Not happiness, not yet, but the solid, unshakable satisfaction of a man who had crafted a blueprint and seen it built exactly to design, the methodical dismantling of those who had once tried to destroy me. Last month, Harborview had won a major design award, and my career was ascending swiftly. I went on dates now and then, though I wasn't searching for anything serious. There was no urgency to replace what had been lost, because I now understood that what I lost had never truly been mine to begin with. Sometimes the most devastating revenge requires nothing but letting the truth breathe and do its slow, inevitable work. I hadn't needed to yell. I hadn't needed to make threats. I had simply allowed the truth to emerge and trusted consequences to follow. I finished my drink and stepped back inside, closing the door firmly behind me, locking away the past where it belonged. Tomorrow would bring new plans, new dreams, new opportunities to create something lasting and real. Unlike my marriage, unlike the brotherhood I had once believed in, the structures I built from steel and glass would endure, honest, solid, unbreakable. And as I set my empty glass on the counter, I realized that was all I had ever truly wanted. Our story has come to an end. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the way I tell stories, head over to my channel and check out my other videos. May the force be with you. See you soon, my friend.